What is going on, everybody? It is first weekend in November, and it is still really warm here in the Houston area. But you never know when temperatures are going to drop. So we got some of my Plumerias that are really tall. These are actually ones I grew from seed, and they're about 2 or 3 years old now, and they're growing like wildfire. I mean, you can see these are over 6 foot tall, and this one is actually about to bloom. So I'm not going to prune this one now, but you'll notice every time it blooms, it'll put out this little arm, this little reach right here. It'll put out this little stem. It'll bloom, and then when it's done blooming, this will die. It'll start to branch out like this. Usually 3 branches, and then that will fall off. And that will fall off. But every time it blooms, it's going to branch off. So this bloomed like early in the spring. Like it has grown 18 inches in full sun into this 3 gallon container. Like it's pretty big. So this one right here just got done blooming. You can see the stem actually. So you see the stem right here? This one's about done blooming. And these are first year blooms. It's the first time these have ever bloomed before. And this is obviously a white, a yellow. But actually they won't show their true bloom until like their third cycle of blooming. So it may be white now. It could be a different color the second time and the third time. And then after the third cycle, the fourth time it blooms, that is actually the true color. That's what I learned from Alex, the Plumeria Papa. We just did a podcast with him 2 weeks ago. But you can see these are pretty tall, right? So I want to go ahead and get them pruned and get them, fully scabbed over, healed over before we store them for winter in the greenhouse. Because if I leave them like this, by the time March, April comes around, we start pulling everything out, these are going to be hitting the roof already. So we're going to go ahead and take these off. I actually had these, got them wrapped up to my old greenhouse wire right here using this reusable rubber. It's like a rubber coated wire that we love it. We use it for everything. And this stake was not cutting it. The stake was, I mean, just goes to show you how big it was originally. This spring, it was this tall. It was less than this tall. And now it's 6 foot tall now. So we're going to go take this over here, and it's at a point where I can grab it. Look at those roots. Look at those roots. That's fine. I'll probably repot this in the spring. I don't want to go repotting this right before we go into fall, winter time when it goes dormant. I'll probably leave it like this, store it in the greenhouse, and repot it in the spring. So we want to be careful. Watch out. Don't let the dogs and don't let this sap where I just cut this stem off. Don't let that get in your eyes. Don't let it get in any wounds. It can be toxic. This is in the dog bane family, like the oleander family, just like milkweed and oleanders and adenium. So you just want to be careful with the sap. I don't wear contacts anymore because of stuff like this. So we're gonna throw this on the gorilla cart dolly. We're gonna haul this around. I got this new dolly from Gorilla Cart, and it'll hold 800 pounds, so it's huge and can be really helpful for moving plants around. I'm gonna take it over here, throw it out. Make sure I don't trip in a pothole over here. So this is optional. You don't have to do this. You don't have to prune your plumeria at all. You could just leave it like this and let it do its thing. But I'm trying to control a little bit more how this one grows. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna cut it off here. That way it gives it some room to die back. And then also when I go to plant this cutting in the spring, it's got enough, big, main trunk, and it's got these branches. And then wherever I cut here, it's going to branch off as well. So it's going to be really neat. So what we're going to do first, I've got my saw. This is a Felco pull saw. And I would usually use my pruners for this. But like I said, we had that podcast with the Plumeria Papa, and he was actually saying that if you use pruners on like a plumeria stem, the squeezing action can actually be damaging to the plant because they're not like really woody when they're this young. So doing with pruners can actually be damaging. So using a pull saw like this would be really helpful. I also got some isopropyl alcohol. So we're going to sanitize our saw every time we use it between plants. That way we're not cross-contaminating from plant to plant. Dry this off a little bit. And then also have some cinnamon. You can use a multitude of things. Everybody's got their preference, but when I'm pruning on anthemiums and plumerias, I typically would just use some cinnamon. I buy some cinnamon on Amazon or Walmart or whatever, and I just use it out in the garden. Cinnamon has like antifungal properties. Some people swear by it. Some people think it's stupid, but I use cinnamon, so that's what we're gonna do. But got it sterilized, and it's really important that when you make a cut on these, that you want to make sure there's a 45-degree angle cut on the main stem. So when it's sitting out, it's not having water sitting on top. It's not going to rot it out. So if it's got a 45-degree angle, it'll drain water. It'll run off. It won't hold right there. So we're going to make our first cut right here. Then we're going to go right here. And we're going to go 45-degree angle. There we go. All right. We'll kind of clean that cut up a little bit with my knife. We'll go through and we'll just kind of clean that up. We don't want any water sitting around just rotting that out. And then we're going to take some cinnamon. And you can do a brush or whatever. I shake a little bit on, puff it on there a little bit, just kind of rub it in. And not only will that help with, people say it helps with antifungal properties, it also just it kind of cotters the wound. It kind of keeps it from leaking out too much. So we'll do the same thing here, but on our cutting end, we're actually going to cut it clean. We're going to cut it flat. So I'm going to go through and make a flat cutting. Cut off this angled piece. Make sure your dog doesn't eat stuff like this. It'll make them sick. Like I said, we're taking cinnamon. I'm just going to go and puff it on. Try not to get it in my wife's face. Sorry. Yeah, good to go. All right. The cinnamon's going to help stop the bleeding, stop the sap flow. And then we're going to take our pruners here. I usually keep a wagon or something around. We're going to cut off all these leaves. You could leave them. You can leave them on. They'll fall off eventually when this goes dormant. But this is kind of our way of forcing dormancy. Because we're in Houston and it's such a mild winter, even in my greenhouse, these don't really go dormant. They pretty much keep their leaves and will bloom year-round in my greenhouse. Even in my garage with grow lights, I've seen them bloom in there. So, we don't really have a dormant period most of the time. But we're actually, this year, we're going to be forcing dormancy. It's basically me taking all these leaves off, putting these in my garage over winter, is forcing this cutting into dormancy. And you could do one or two things with this. You could just take it and let it scab over for a week or so, and then plant it. You could do that right away. No problem with that. We're just going into late fall, winter time, and I don't really want it to spend all of its time, energy trying to build roots right now. I'd rather just save up all that energy for fall or for next spring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this cutting. You can see a sap flow, that white sticky latex sap flow. You can take the cinnamon and you can dust that to it. It's not necessary, but it will help it from leaking everywhere. Plus, it smells good. And cinnamon, when it's dry, will actually act as an asphyxiant for ants. So now what we're going to do, we'll take this one, we'll put a label on this. These are all pretty much white. This one is the same one, just like that. I will leave the little leaves on there, not hurting anything. And I'm going to store these in the garage over winter. We'll put them in the dark, in a dry space. You want it to be above like 50 degrees in your garage at all times. You could even store these in your bathroom or your bedroom in like a Tupperware container. But until it's above freezing in the spring, I'm not going to bring these out. There are people who actually will pull up their Plumerias every single year. They'll pull up their Plumerias every single year out of the soil and store them dry over winter. Same thing with the original plant. We're going to take this one, and these are going to be my greenhouse all winter, so they will be exposed to sunlight. But for about a week, until this is healed up, I want to keep it dry. It's been raining this week, so I'm gonna go set these under my porch so that they stay somewhat dry. They're not getting rain on top of there. So, but luckily we cut this at a 45-degree angle, so it's not gonna be much of an issue, even if we did leave it out. So some people do it. Everybody does it differently with Plumerias. Everybody does it differently. So, you know, if you're watching this video and you're disagreeing with me, that's fine. I'm sure there's more than one way to do this. Some people, I've heard people in Hawaii will literally just take a cutting, stick it in the ground, and it grows. I mean, that's fine. Different areas, different methods. There's a million ways to do things. So, but take what you learned in my video and apply it to, you know, what you're doing, and hopefully what I'm showing you helps. So, hope you all enjoy this video, and we'll see you on the next one.